The sun hung low in the sky, painting the little town of Willow Creek in shades of amber and gold. Dust danced in the warm air, swirling between the clapboard buildings as shadows from the late afternoon stretched long across the dirt streets. For those who watched closely, the ordinary facade of the town began to fray at the edges. It was just another day in a town where everyone knew everyone, until it wasn't. At the heart of this seemingly quiet town stood a grand wooden church, its steeple a proud declaration among the simple homes and rough-hewn saloons. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and whispered prayers. The preacher, a man named Eli, was a figure of unwavering faith, a man known for delivering the kind of sermons that could shake the very walls of the church. People came from miles around, hoping his words would wash over them like rain, cleansing their souls. But behind the pulpit, beneath the comforting veneer, lay cracks in the foundation of Eli's life. His wife Mary had been the light in his world. With her laughter, she buoyed the heavy atmosphere of Sunday gatherings, wrapping congregants in warmth. But lately, shadows formed behind her gentle eyes, and the glow of her spirit dimmed. On that particular evening, a storm brewed not just in the sky, but in the depths of Mary's heart. She stood in the bedroom, her fingers tracing the worn edges of a locket that held photographs of happier times. Eli's voice was a comfort, but not one she needed to hear anymore. Outside, a rolling thunder rumbled in the distance, echoing her turmoil. She had made a choice that felt both exhilarating and deeply frightening. As raindrops began their gentle descent, Mary made her way to the back door, aware that a life worth living sometimes meant stepping away from the things that bound you. She slipped into the growing darkness, leaving only the slightest crack in the door, barely a whisper of farewell. The preacher would not notice she was gone for at least an hour, lost in the cadence of his prayers, wrapped in the arms of his own perfection. Meanwhile, across town at the Golden Spur Saloon, laughter and music spilled into the night. The flickering light cast shadows of lively figures against the walls. It was a world where all the town's secrets were shared, a place familiar yet foreign to most good folk. And there, like a siren in the fog, was Claire, the saloon girl with fierce green eyes and an infectious smile. Claire understood the unspoken rules of her world. She wore her heart openly, and behind those playful banter and sultry moves was a woman who had seen more pain than most. She caught sight of Eli stumbling into the bar, his cheeks flushed with a mixture of rejection and pride. The patrons whispered, leaning in, eager for a glimpse of drama, and Eli himself felt the glances like daggers, but he marched on toward the bar, an oasis for his troubled spirit. Claire was not surprised to see him there. She knew what festered beneath the polished surface of their lives. "Evening, preacher," she called cheerily, leaning over to pour him a drink. The clinking of glass was joined by the murmur of whispered speculations. Eli tried to offer a smile, the kind that could set a heart aflame, but it was hollow like the bottle before him. "Just one, Claire," he said softly. His voice was almost lost amid the laughter, a ghost in a sea of noise, but Claire could see beneath the surface. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world, Eli." He shifted uncomfortably, the burden of truth rolling heavily on his chest. "Mary left town," he admitted, surprised at how the words felt. They were a truth he hadn't yet acknowledged. Claire's heart prickled, a jolt of awareness flooding through her. Even though she had expected it, her breath hitched. The preacher shook his head, jaw clenched tight, cheeks burning with shame. "I thought we were okay." His voice trailed off, but Claire knew what it meant to live in the shadow of a perfect image. "Eli, she's a woman who deserves to feel alive," Claire said gently, her own past surfacing with her words. The tension in the air pulsed, a living thing. Eli looked away, tracing the rim of his glass. The question was biting, a defense against the truth she dared to speak. "I know plenty," she replied, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Every one of us has a past. Mine may not be as pure as yours, but it's real. I've listened to the stories of women who were never heard." Something flickered in Eli's gaze, the ensemble of emotions clashing within him. Anger, regret, and doubt waged war while the laughter around them continued to swirl like autumn leaves in a storm. Claire leaned in closer, lowering her voice, allowing the shared intimacy of their pain to envelope them. "She wants freedom, Eli. Freedom to be herself, to chase her own path. Eli's fingers gripped the glass tightly, his knuckles whitening. "I can't lose her," he muttered, the resolve in his voice weakening like a candle flickering in the wind. "Then you need to find her," Claire urged, her heart beating faster. But the truth loomed large. He could feel it curling around him, squeezing tighter as the realization crashed over him. He wasn't the only one in the spotlight. He never had been. Slowly, he pushed back from the bar, the weight of the world pressing on his shoulders, forcing him to confront the truth he had buried. He asked, almost as if he were grasping at wisps of hope. Claire saw the flicker of desperation in his eyes and knew the answer was more complicated than he could fathom. "She's probably at the edge of town, looking for clarity, a break from it all." As Eli stumbled out into the rain-slicked street, the cold droplets hit his skin like little reminders of every unspoken word, every moment he had dismissed. He glanced back at the saloon where Claire stood elbow-deep in shadows and whispers, a sentinel of truth. He fought the temptation to drown himself in forgetfulness, as many had done before him. With determination, Eli made his way through the storm, the wind biting at his skin while thunder echoed around him. The town began to reveal itself under the silver light of the moon, and in its quiet he felt the weight of expectation, his own and others. He reached the edge of town where the trees stood like guardians, heavy with rain-soaked leaves. His heart raced as he called out Mary's name, the sound swallowed by the rumble of thunder. But he pressed on, the desperation gnawing at his insides. His voice pierced the night, a siren call filled with urgency. He moved deeper into the woods, branches clawing at his clothes, his spirit rising and falling with the same rhythm as the storm. And there she was standing on the banks of a small river, water rushing by like a torrent of memories she couldn't escape. The light caught her figure, illuminating the storm within her, the conflict written across her face. Eli felt the breath hitch in his throat, the realization that she was just as lost as he had become. He asked, the words raw and unfinished, carried by the wind. Mary turned, the rain cascading down her face mingling with the tears she had been holding back. In that moment they stood united in their pain, two souls yearning for something they couldn't quite name. She hesitated, then continued, "To find myself outside of your need for perfection. But I need you," he begged, desperation giving his voice a hoarse edge. The world around them faded. Thunder rumbled softly, almost as if pausing to hear her reply. "You can't need me to fill the gaps in your life, Eli." He stepped closer, feeling the weight of his own darkness blend with hers. "I don't want to lose you." Mary looked deep into his eyes, searching for understanding. "And I didn't realize how much I needed to break free. I love you, but you're not the only one who needs saving." In the chaos of emotions, each word cut deeper than any blade. Eli felt his heart twist painfully. For the first time, silence reigned, filled with the electric tension of what could have been and what lay ahead. Eli stretched out his hand, a gesture filled with yearning. Mary's lips trembled, uncertainty dancing behind her eyes, but there was something else flickering hope. She asked, vulnerability hanging between them like a thread waiting to unravel. "Yes," he said firmly, the ground beneath them no longer feeling so unsteady. As she took his hand, the storm around them slowed, as if nature too understood the weight of their shared journey. The world beyond faded, and in that moment, they were just Eli and Mary, two souls caught in a tempest of love and liberation. And while other eyes watched from behind windows, the saloon girls sighed with the weight of unspent dreams, and the preacher's flock prayed for healing. None could see the quiet rebirth taking place in the heart of the storm. In the tension of a raw, vulnerable night, two hearts found their way back, not to what they had been, but to what they could become together and free, bound by the promise of love that transcended all that had once held them captive. The sun hung low in the sky, casting an eerie, golden hue over the town of Willow Creek. Just as the church bells rang out, no one noticed the preacher's wife slipping out the back door, her heart heavy with unsaid words and unfulfilled dreams. Behind her calm exterior lay a storm that had been brewing for far too long. As Mary stepped into the cool evening air, she inhaled deeply, savoring the smell of rain-soaked earth. The whispers of the townsfolk drifted away as she moved further into the growing darkness. For too long, she had been trapped under a stack of expectations, suffocating beneath the weight of her role. It rang in her ears like a prison sentence. In the saloon across town, laughter erupted from within the Golden Spur, a place buzzing with the noise of broken dreams and broken hearts. Claire, the saloon girl with fiery red hair and a spirit to match, caught the eye of the room, her laughter like a siren calling to those desperate for comfort, warmth, and perhaps a little wildness. She had seen women like Mary before, the ones who had lost their spark while playing the perfect role in a small town. When the preacher trudged into the saloon later that night, Claire felt a deep stirring in her gut. He wore his usual sorrow like a well-worn cloak, a facade of faith barely holding back the heaviness threatening to engulf him. Eli took a seat at the bar, his fingers trembling slightly around a glass of whiskey. It was just another evening for the preacher, a man revered yet trapped between the altar and his own heart. Claire asked, sliding a glass toward him, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and sympathy. "Just a drink, Claire," he replied, his voice a whisper, as if secret confessions lingered just beneath the surface. Claire's heart sank. She could see the torment in his eyes' anguish coiling around him like a vice. "I haven't." Eli's posture slumped, the weight of unspoken truths heavy on his heart. "She was distant, you know. I thought she was just going through a phase." His voice trailed off, and for the first time the facade cracked. Claire leaned closer, her instincts sharper than most. "Talk to me, Eli." He hesitated, uncertain of how to articulate the turmoil swirling inside him. "I had no idea she was so unhappy. I guess I got lost in my own world with sermons and expectations. I thought I was doing right by her." The sincerity in his voice tugged at Claire's heart. She leaned against the bar, her own experiences flashing in her mind like old photographs. "Preacher, everyone has their breaking point. Sometimes people just need space, freedom." If Mary walked away. Eli's outburst startled her, surprising even himself. He took a deep breath, lowering his voice. "What will I do without her?" "And what about her?" Claire's voice remained steady, but the sharpness of her words sank deep. "Being the good preacher doesn't mean sacrificing her happiness." The preacher looked down into his glass, the barely touched whiskey swirling like his thoughts. "And yet here we are," Claire continued. "She left because she felt stifled." Eli's heart raced. The truth was a bitter pill that lodged in his throat. He could barely swallow it. "But she can't just disappear. The town will talk, they will judge." Claire pressed, her green eyes piercing through Eli's storm of emotions. "She might have been waiting for you to see her, truly see her." His chest tightened. Claire was right. The longer he sat in silence, the more pressure built within him. A reckless thought flickered in his mind, the proverbial light bulb going off. "What if?" Claire raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And what will you say?" "I'll tell her the truth." Eli's eyes flared with determination, but a tremor crept into his voice. Still, he couldn't ignore the pull in his gut, the urgency to right the wrongs he had overlooked. "Then go," Claire urged, and the way she said it felt like a battle cry. "Find her before it's too late." As Eli tore out of the saloon into the cool night air, each step resonated with the urgency of a man awakened from a deep slumber. The streets hummed with the sound of rain falling softly on rooftops, washing away the sins of the day. Each drop reminded him of every moment he had taken Mary for granted. He felt alive with a newfound purpose and the frantic desire to reclaim what was slipping through his fingers. His footsteps quickened as he raced toward the outskirts of town. Mary's absence was like a weight on his chest, suffocating and undeniable. The woods loomed ahead, thick and dark, shadows twisting like whispers around him. But there, beyond the trembling treetops, he could see the flickering light of a lantern illuminating the path she must have taken. He shouted into the thickening night, the cry escaping from the depths of his soul. The wind answered, swirling around him, carrying his voice farther into the woods. As he moved deeper into the trees, anxiety washed over him. He had to find her before the night swallowed her whole. And in that moment, he remembered every instance of shared laughter moments where their souls danced in harmony and where he had too easily overlooked the distance growing between them. Finally, he reached a small clearing, the moonlight breaking through the branches to reveal a figure standing at the edge of a small river. Mary, and fear. He called, his voice trembling in the stillness. She turned at the sound of her name, and in that moment the world fell away. The sound of rushing water faded into silence, leaving only the raw intensity of unspoken words hanging between them. Her voice cracked, revealing the tender vulnerability beneath her bravado. He stepped closer, the space that separated them feeling both achingly vast and insurmountable. "I came to find you," she challenged, a hint of anger rising in her voice, but it was mixed with a deep sadness. "What do you think you know, Eli? You've been lost in your sermons while I've felt like a ghost." His heart sank, understanding dawning as he finally surfaced from the delusion he had been clinging to. "I never meant for that to happen. I thought I was doing right by you, but—" Mary looked down at the water, then back at him, her face softening. "It's not just about you, it's about me too." A silence stretched between them, each heartbeat echoing unanswered questions. Eli took a step forward, the rush of their emotions electrifying the air around them. "You can still feel alive with me, Mary." Tears brimmed in her eyes, revealing a flicker of hope. "Maybe we shouldn't," he replied, his voice steady. "But we can start again. You deserve to live your truth fully." "You're asking me to trust you," Mary murmured, her uncertainty palpable. Eli took another step forward, earnestness radiating from him. In that moment, a glimmer of what could be flickered between them. She took a deep breath, tasting freedom on her tongue. The truth bore down on them like a weight, yet it felt liberating. The air around them throbbed with possibilities. Mary's heart raced, caught between fear and hope, a tumultuous wave crashing against the shore of her soul. He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining instinctively, and for a moment a spark ignited. "Together we can. No more hiding, no more fear." As the moon shone down on them, illuminating their fragile connection, Mary felt the weight of her burdens begin to lift. Maybe this was where hope began, deep in the heart of uncertainty, illuminated by the light of love. Sometimes, finding oneself means stepping away from the confines of what was expected, and as the rain sprinkled gently around them, she realized they could redefine their story together. A journey not dictated by the world outside, but by their hearts within. And while the townsfolk would talk, while Claire would watch with knowing eyes, it wouldn't matter. This was their moment, the precipice of new beginnings, fragile yet charged with promise. Love, after all, was not just about possession, it was about liberation. And in that moment, 4 simple words hung in the air, filled with hope, possibility, and the electric thread connecting 2 souls. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow over the small town of Willow Creek. Its rays filtered through the tall trees, painting everything in shades of gold before darkness draped itself over the dusty streets. As the town settled into silence, no one had any idea that beneath this tranquil scene, turmoil was brewing. In the quiet of her home, Mary stood in front of the mirror, her reflection staring back with a sadness that no one else could see. The preacher's wife, admired by all for her grace and piety, carried a burden heavier than the world knew. She felt suffocated by the weight of expectations, a life lived in the shadow of her husband's ministry. With each passing day, the vibrant woman she once was slipped further from her grasp. Tonight was different. Tonight, her heart raced with the thrill of possibility as she stood there, a single suitcase by her side, packed with memories and a longing for a life unchained. All she needed was the courage to step into the unknown. As she slipped out the back door, the night air hit her like a cool kiss, fragrant with the scent of rain-soaked earth and blooming wildflowers. She paused for a moment, glancing back at the house that had held her dreams and her prison. The sound of the church bells echoed in the distance, tolling for the reverent souls who believed in her as the perfect wife. But for Mary, those bells rang hollow, a reminder of everything that held her captive. Meanwhile, in the smoky warmth of the Golden Spur Saloon, the air was thick with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Claire, a saloon girl with fiery red hair and emerald eyes, danced between tables, her laughter buoying the spirits of weary townsfolk. She was the wild spark in a town that played by unwritten rules, a woman who understood the hidden desires of those who entered through the swinging doors. Claire noticed the preacher's shadow looming in the doorway, his broad shoulders tense beneath the weight of his clerical garb. Eli, the preacher, looked as if he had waged a war within himself, and tonight he appeared to have lost. With his jaw clenched and eyes dim, he made his way to the bar. Claire asked, pouring a drink and sliding it toward him. He picked it up as though it were made of glass and not whiskey. His voice was low, rough around the edges, laced with worry. "Something's eating at you," Claire said, leaning in slightly, the low hum of the saloon fading away around them. Eli sighed, a heavy sound filled with pent-up frustration. The words hung in the air between them, ripe with unspoken secrets. Conversation in the saloon faltered for a heartbeat. All eyes turned toward the preacher, curiosity flickering like candle flames. Claire asked, her heart quickening. She had known Mary, seen the quiet despair hidden behind the gentle smile. "Just that," Eli replied, the tension coiling tighter in his shoulders. "She packed a bag while I was in prayer and vanished. No word, no note." Claire's mind raced, connection sparking like static. She was unhappy, Eli. "I thought she was just going through something. I didn't." He clenched his fists, the whiskey cup trembling slightly. "She didn't leave without a reason," Claire pressed, her voice steady as she steered him toward the truth they both knew lay beneath the surface. Eli shifted uncomfortably on the bar stool, yet Claire's words struck home. He asked, defensiveness creeping into his tone. Her gaze was unyielding. Mary needed to feel alive. Trapped under the weight of being the perfect preacher's wife, she lost herself. His eyes flickered with pain, the kind that cannot be hidden. "But how could she do this to me?" Claire reached out, a subtle gesture of connection. Love is a two-way street. If one person isn't free to be who they are, then it's not real. Eli's chest tightened as the reality of her words settled in. Deep down, he felt the walls he had built around their lives begin to crumble. But where would she go? Panic swirled in his mind, each worst-case scenario drowning out the flicker of hope. "You have to find her," Claire said, the urgency in her voice rising. "You can't let fear dictate your actions. Go to her, Eli." As the preacher stumbled into the night, he felt both fear and resolve intertwining tightly in his chest. The cool air bit at his skin, invigorating him. He turned toward the outskirts of town and began running, his feet pounding against the dirt road. Memories of Mary filled his mind, her laughter echoing between hymns, her soft words lifting spirits on somber days. They all rushed past him like a cinematic montage, their beauty tinged with regret. The path wound through the woods, each step fueled by the hope of reaching her before it was too late. The night sky stretched endlessly above him, the stars shining like distant dreams. Finally, he reached a clearing where the moonlight laced through the trees, illuminating a figure standing at the edge of a river. Mary. The sight of her brought both relief and fresh pain, a bittersweet cocktail of emotions crashing over him. He called out, the urgency choking his voice. She turned, looking more fragile under the stark moonlight than he had ever seen. She asked, her voice steady but pained. He moved closer, his heart pounding like a drum. "What happened?" "It wasn't that simple," she replied, tears glimmering in her eyes as the moonlight reflected her turmoil. "I felt lost in a role I never wanted. It suffocated me." Eli's chest tightened, guilt clawing at him. "I thought I was doing right by you. But you were giving me things, a house, a title, but not my freedom," she interrupted, her voice rising. "I need to live for myself, Eli." The air hung heavy with unspoken truths, each word twisting tighter around their confessions. "I didn't see it," he said softly, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. Silence wrapped around them, the rush of the river echoing the chaos in their hearts. "I tried to be the perfect wife, Eli," Mary continued, tears spilling down her cheeks. Drawing closer, he reached for her hand, his heart aching with the need to connect. "I want to help you find that woman, Mary. The one who dances under the stars, who breathes life into mundane moments." Her eyes searched his, a storm of conflicting emotions swirling within them. Eli held her gaze steady, laying bare his heart. "Then help me understand what you need. I'm willing to learn, Mary. We can create something new beyond those walls." The words hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. "I'm scared," she whispered, her vulnerability unraveling before him. "I'm scared too," he admitted, the truth raw between them. As the river rushed by, Mary felt her heart begin to open, hope brushing against her despair. "I will," he said firmly, squeezing her hand gently. "Every day." The connection sparked anew, electric with possibility. In the midst of uncertainty, a glimmer of love flickered in the space between them. "I want to believe that," she murmured, her voice trembling. "Let's not go back," Eli replied. "Let's start fresh." In that moment, the weight of what had been began to lift. The shadows receded while the stars overhead shone brighter, an unfiltered promise of hope glowing in the dark night. And while night draped its cloak over Willow Creek, in the flickering light of the Golden Spur Saloon, Claire stood by the bar watching through the open doors. A knowing smile crept onto her face, her heart swelling with anticipation for what lay ahead. In the days to come, Eli would work hard to build a new foundation for their love, one built on understanding and mutual respect. Together, they would carve out a space where Mary could be both the woman she wanted to be and the partner Eli needed. Knowing that growth takes time, they would move slowly, savoring each moment, each step forward toward connection. They would learn to speak the truth, share their fears, their hopes, and dreams without fear of judgment. As the morning light finally broke over Willow Creek, it carried with it the promise of new beginnings. And at the heart of that promise was the steadfast flame of love, a love that in its many forms would rise, unyielding against the tides of life. In the end, it was not just the preacher's wife finding her way, nor the saloon girl standing at the edge. It was two souls unearthing the deep, abiding power of connection. Two people determined to rewrite their story, to dance bravely into the future together, free and full of life. The sun hung low in the sky over Willow Creek, casting a warm glow that danced across the dusty streets. It was just another perfect afternoon in the small town until it wasn't. As the church bells tolled, no one noticed the preacher's wife slipping out the back door, her heart heavy with unspoken words. Mary had made up her mind. She was leaving. In the stillness of their home, a suitcase lay packed, a quiet testament to her inner turmoil. She had always been the perfect wife, the beacon of light every Sunday morning, her presence carrying an air of grace and serenity. But behind that smiling facade, a storm raged. Every prayer, every sermon Eli preached had become a weight, pulling her deeper into an existence she no longer recognized. Today was the day she claimed herself, the day she breathed freedom for the first time in years. As she stepped out into the growing cool of the evening, the scent of rain-soaked earth filled her lungs. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the rush of wind whip around her. But that fleeting sense of euphoria was marred by the reality of her decision. She would leave without a word. How could she explain the unexplainable? Meanwhile, at the Golden Spur Saloon, the air was thick with laughter and camaraderie. Claire, the saloon girl with vibrant red hair and a wild spirit, danced among the tables, her laughter ringing out like music in the smoky haze. She had seen many women come and go, each with their own story etched onto their faces, but something felt different today. There was tension in the air, whispering secrets that only she could sense. When the preacher walked into the saloon later that evening, his once proud posture was replaced by defeat. Eli's eyes darted around the room, troubled and searching. He spotted Claire and made his way to the bar, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Claire asked, pouring him a drink. The energy in the room dimmed as people turned to look, sensing the preacher's turmoil. "Just whiskey," he replied, his voice thick with confusion. He took a swig, letting the warmth wash over him. "Mary," Claire's heart sank. "Gone." His eyes flickered with worry. "She left. No warning, no note." Claire leaned closer, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. "Didn't you notice anything?" She was unhappy, Eli. Eli rubbed his temples, the weight of her absence crashing over him like a tidal wave. "I thought we were fine. I thought she was just having a rough time." Claire watched him closely, sensing the turmoil swirling inside him. "Eli, you've been so focused on your sermons and your role as the preacher, you might have overlooked her needs." "I thought I was giving her everything," he whispered, pain etched across his face. "No, you were giving her expectation," Claire corrected. She paused, gauging his reaction. His gaze dropped to the bar, shame swirling in his chest. "You have to find her," Claire urged, her voice firm, "before it's too late." Eli's heart raced at the thought of facing the reality of his loss. "Look for her where she might go to clear her head. She's been through so much." With a newfound urgency, Eli nodded and stumbled back out into the cool night air. Each step felt like a sprint towards salvation, the sound of his heartbeat echoing in his ears. He felt the weight of his choices pulling at him, urging him to confront the truth. The shadow of regret loomed large, but behind it flickered a tiny spark of hope. Mary's footsteps led her farther into the night, seeking solace in the woods that bordered Willow Creek. Each step was heavy, her suitcase bumping against her legs as she walked. The stars looked down, twinkling like scattered diamonds, and for a moment she felt a sense of freedom, the kind that comes with leaving everything behind. Yet the freedom was tinged with apprehension. What would happen next? When she finally reached the river, the sound of rushing water greeted her like an old friend. She held her breath as she recalled the life she was leaving behind. Mary could almost hear the echoes of laughter from the congregation, the praise of her husband, each word a reminder of her constraints. But tonight, she was just Mary, no titles, no roles. The moonlight illuminated her face, casting long shadows as she set down her suitcase, tears welling in her eyes. It felt good to be alone, but it also felt terrifying. Life outside the boundaries she knew was a chasm of uncertainty. And yet, as she stood there, insisting that this was the right choice, a familiar voice cut through the night. Eli's voice carried across the water, reverberating through the stillness. The air crackled with tension as she turned, seeing him braving the shadows. His presence was both comforting and daunting, stirring feelings she had buried. She demanded, her heart racing, emotions tangled like thorny vines. "I came to find you," he pleaded, his voice cracking in the cool night air. "You didn't just disappear." "I had to," she replied, anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. "You never asked how I was. You filled your life with sermons and prayers and took for granted that I would always be there." I wanted to scream, "Eli." Eli stepped closer, desperation etched on his face. "But I loved you." Mary shouted, her anger punctuating the night. The hurt spilled over, each word a boundary she had finally decided to defend. "I lost myself trying to meet your expectations." Her words hit him with the force of a freight train, and for the first time, Eli felt something begin to shift inside him. "Mary, I'm sorry. I see that now. But please." The fight was waning, and as Mary looked into his eyes, she saw a flicker of hope buried beneath layers of misunderstanding. "I don't want you to go back," he said, stepping into her space. "I want to find a way forward. You are more than what I turned you into." The moon illuminated her face, and for the first time in a long time, Mary felt the weight of her sadness lift just a little. She searched his eyes, noticing the sincerity reflected there. "Can you really do that?" Eli nodded earnestly. "Let's rediscover each other as partners, not as roles. I'll listen. I'll learn." Mary's heart fluttered at the realization that he meant it. "Then we'll create a new one," he said, determination making his voice steadier. "We can make it something beautiful, no expectations." The tension hung thick in the air, but with every breath, the possibility of healing floated between them. She asked, vulnerability creeping into her voice. "Love isn't about fixing, it's about healing," Eli replied, his thumb gently brushing her hand. "Let's start this journey together." With a deep breath, Mary felt courage awaken inside her. "I don't want to be just the preacher's wife anymore." The river rushed by, carrying with it the remnants of her past worries as they met the promise of tomorrow. Eli's warm grip, unwavering and steady, made her feel alive in ways forgotten. And so they stood there at the precipice of transformation, deciding to take a leap into the unknown. Willow Creek lay behind them, a world of expectations and chains, while before them stretched the promise of something new. They would take it one step at a time, searching for connection instead of perfection. In the days that followed, Mary began to find herself again. She took long walks by the river, rediscovered her love for painting, and slowly started sharing her feelings with Eli in the quiet moments they carved out between prayer and sermon. Together, they confronted the unspoken hurt, opening themselves to vulnerability, forgiving the missteps of the past. Eli witnessed Mary becoming whole again, her spirit flaring with newfound light. And as he saw her blossoming, he too began to understand that the essence of love lay in acceptance, not possession. He shared his own fears and doubts, establishing a new kind of intimacy that ran deeper than the surface level of their past. Claire, meanwhile, watched from a distance, knowing there were deeper lessons at hand. She understood the complexities of love and relationships, aware that healing brings its own rhythm. The saloon became a backdrop to this transformation, a sanctuary for seeking souls sharing laughter, heartache, and joy. As the seasons changed, so did the landscape of their love. They ventured into the unknown, both willing to explore the depths of their souls, no longer just preacher and wife but partners and equals. Each day was a step toward truth, a journey to reclaim each other in a way neither had ever imagined possible. With time, Mary felt empowered, standing beside Eli not as a shadow but as his equal. The preacher's heart swelled with pride as he watched her flourish, learning that freeing someone does not mean losing them. It meant supporting their journey toward authenticity. And deep down, Mary knew this journey would not always be easy. There would be moments of doubt and fear, but now they would face them together, with open hearts and an unbreakable bond. The sun set over Willow Creek, bathing the town in orange hues as two souls continued to weave their lives together, embracing the rhythmic dance of love and transformation. They each learned that the essence of a relationship is rooted in mutual respect, freedom, and the unwavering support of becoming who you truly are. The preacher's wife left town that day, but the journey she began was only the start of a new beginning, a path lit by newfound love, and a saloon girl who knew that sometimes love requires not just finding each other, but finding oneself too. In the end, that was the true redemption, an awakening that bound them through every twist and turn life had to offer. The evening was sultry in Willow Creek, the air thick with a strange mix of expectation and dread. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the town while shadows crept through the narrow streets. But within the quiet walls of the preacher's house, only silence reigned. It was a silence that crackled with tension, a poised breath before the storm to come. In her bedroom, Mary stood before the mirror, her reflection a ghost of the woman she once knew. The fabled preacher's wife, admired and revered, now felt like a role she had been forced into, an actor playing a part so unreal it had started to suffocate her. Behind that serene smile lay a heart yearning for freedom, a spirit dimmed by the weight of perfection that seemed to hang heavily in the air. With trembling hands, she adjusted the collar of her dress, catching a glimpse of sadness in her eyes. The room was filled with memories, moments where laughter echoed, but they felt far away now, like whispers carried off by the wind. Tonight was her night of reckoning, the night she would reclaim herself. Outside, the town buzzed with the sound of life, children laughing, adults sharing their stories over dinner. No one noticed as Mary slipped out the back door, suitcase in hand, ready to cast off the chains of expectation. Every step away from that house felt like shedding an old skin. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was both running away and running towards something brighter. As she made her way down the dusty lane, the shadows lengthened, swallowing her whole. But she didn't care. She had made her decision. Somewhere in the depths of her heart, she felt hope rekindling, like flickering candlelight against the darkness. At the Golden Spur Saloon, a world of laughter and chaos played out in vivid color. Claire, the saloon girl with wild red hair and a fierce spirit, moved gracefully among the patrons, serving drinks and exchanging playful banter. This was her world, a place filled with untold stories, broken dreams, and fleeting moments of joy. But tonight, a heaviness lingered in the air as she sensed something was off. When Eli, the preacher, stepped through the saloon doors, the atmosphere changed. His usual confidence was replaced by an unmistakable aura of despair. Murmurs faded and eyes turned toward him. He approached the bar, each step heavy with defeat. Claire asked, pouring a drink with a practiced hand. "Just whiskey," he replied, voice barely above a whisper. As the glass settled in front of him, he stared into it as if hoping to find answers within the amber liquid. Claire asked, her concern genuine. Eli shook his head slowly, pain evident in his features. Mary left. At those words, Claire felt as if the breath had been knocked from her lungs. His eyes glistened, reflecting hurt and confusion. She packed her things and Claire leaned in, her heart racing. She had known Mary, watched her fade into the shadows, the joyful laughter replaced by a haunting silence. "Didn't you see it coming? I thought she was just having a hard time adjusting," Eli replied, defensiveness creeping into his voice. Claire pressed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You were so consumed by your role as the preacher." "I thought I was taking care of her," Eli said, the weight of failure crashing down around him. You weren't taking care of her. You were putting her on a pedestal, Claire responded sharply. Love is also about freedom, not just duty. His gaze fell to the bar as his heart sank further. You have to find her, Claire said, her voice steady. You won't have peace until you do. With a determined nod, Eli set down his drink and pushed himself up from the bar. Each step toward the door echoed with urgency, a pulse thrumming in sync with his racing heart. As he burst into the night air, the cool breeze stung against his skin, yet it awakened something deep inside him, a flicker of hope, a desire to make things right. Mary wandered through the woods, branches scratching against her arms as she made her way deeper into the darkness. Each step was liberating. For years, she had worried about how her life looked to others. Now, finally free, she craved a deep breath and exhale of everything she had held inside for too long. At the edge of a small clearing, she found the river. The moonlight glinted off the water's surface, a silvery path leading toward the horizon. Setting down her suitcase, she bent to touch the water, feeling its coolness wrap around her fingers like a gentle embrace. This was her sanctuary, a place where she could think, feel, and just be. But even as she stood there, the voice of doubt crept in. What if this was a mistake? What if she could never come back? Just as those thoughts churned in her mind, she heard a rustling behind her. Eli's voice echoed from the shadows, panic threading through each syllable. She turned sharply, her heart racing. Seeing him made every emotion crash back in waves: anger, love, regret, and fear. She exclaimed, trying to hold onto the walls she had built. Eli pressed, stepping closer, his eyes pleading. You can't just leave without saying anything. His desperation pierced through her defenses. Why? She shot back, anger spilling over. It's because I felt invisible. I felt trapped in a life that wasn't mine. Eli's face fell, his heart shattering at each word. He searched her eyes, pleading for understanding. I thought I was doing right by you. Mary shouted, frustration erupting from the depths of her soul. I needed to be seen, to be heard. As their voices echoed throughout the empty woods, a silence hung in the air, settling over them like a weight. But Eli refused to back down. That's why I'm here. Tell me what you want. She cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I need to find my own identity, my own dreams. Eli stepped forward, desperation etched on his face. I can help you with that. I can help you find your dreams, but I need you to let me in. For the first time, Mary allowed her guard to fall, her heart aching and raw. Then we'll figure it out together, he promised, his voice steady. As the river flowed steadily beside them, Mary felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. In that moment, she saw Eli, the man who had long ago captured her heart, was still there, waiting for her to reach out. But would she dare? She whispered, vulnerability clinging to her every word. Yes, he replied, stepping closer still until they were nearly touching. No roles, no expectations, just us. Mary felt her heart swell, courage bubbling to the surface. Then I'll follow, Eli replied. I'll follow you anywhere, because love means supporting each other even when the road gets tough. In that moment, Mary gasped, the weight lifting as realization washed over her. All right then. Over the next few weeks, as dawn broke over Willow Creek, Mary began to unravel the pieces of herself she had lost along the way. With Eli at her side, she took long walks to the river, found solace in painting, and shared her fears openly for the first time. Together, they learned to communicate, to confront the unspoken hurt that had once lingered heavy between them. Eli dedicated himself to understanding her, his heart full of gratitude and determination. He could see Mary blossoming, her laughter returning as her spirit reignited. And as Mary's hopes took flight, he realized that this journey was not just about saving her, but about saving them both. Claire watched from the saloon, aware of the delicate balance of emotions swirling around the preacher and his wife. She had seen many couples drown in the shadows of unfulfilled expectations, but what she witnessed now was different. There was a glimmer of something real, a connection forged in honesty and vulnerability. As the seasons changed, so did their love. Eli began to feel free too, shedding the confines of duty that had once bound him. He shared his own fears and dreams, learning to be vulnerable, to accept that love is a two-way street filled with understanding and trust. With time, Mary found herself breathing easier, standing by Eli not as a shadow but as an equal. She became an active participant in her own story, rediscovering the depths of her passions, while he admired her strength, stunned by her radiant spirit. At the Golden Spur Saloon, laughter filled the air as life moved on around them. Claire, ever the watchful guardian, saw possibilities unfolding for the couple. It was clear that love could arise from the ashes of pain, transforming lives and revealing deeper truths. And as the sun dipped below the horizon each evening, Mary and Eli would hand in hand, watching the world transform in the dusk, feeling that together they could overcome anything. Every challenge, every doubt became a part of their journey, fueling them with strength and understanding. The preacher's wife had left town that night, but what blossomed in her absence was a love forged anew between two souls determined to fight for the freedom of one another. It was a path paved with vulnerability and trusted journey that would never be linear but would be filled with heart, struggles, and hope. Each day would be a testament to the power of connection, the unearthing of a love built on shared dreams and mutual respect, proving that healing is never a straight path. Together, they learned that to love truly is to let go and allow one another not only to thrive but to soar. And beneath the watchful stars of Willow Creek, two hearts moved toward a single rhythm, embracing the infinite complexities of love. A journey marked not by the roles they played, but by the souls they uncovered together. The town of Willow Creek was a postcard of serenity, its sun-kissed streets and flower-laden porches promising simple joys. Yet beneath this picturesque facade lay a current of unspoken tension, and it was about to erupt. At the heart of the storm was Mary, the preacher's wife, standing at the threshold of her life, a suitcase clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Tonight was not just another evening, it was her breaking point. As the last rays of sunlight danced across the horizon, Mary took a deep breath and stepped outside, feeling the cool night air wrap around her like a long-lost lover. She could hardly process the warmth of freedom enveloping her. For too long, she had played the role of the perfect wife, the dutiful partner to Eli, the town's revered preacher. But behind the smile plastered on her face lay a heart suffocating beneath layers of unspoken expectations. Every Sunday, Mary stood beside Eli, adorned in a dress that sparkled like her smiles. Yet, with each praise, she felt a part of herself shatter, a dream slipping further away into the abyss. It was exhausting keeping up the facade, living a life defined by someone else's vision of holiness. She walked quietly through the back alley, feeling the weight of her decision settle on her shoulders. Tonight would be the night she reclaimed her identity. The suitcase held not just clothes but dreams long forgotten. She felt an exhilaration coursing through her, a whisper of liberation, but she also acknowledged the fear gripping her heart. Behind that door was everything she had ever known, loving memories entwined with a growing sense of entrapment. At the Golden Spur Saloon, the hum of laughter mingled with the clinking of glasses, and the air was thick with life and revelry. Claire, the saloon girl with fiery red hair and emerald eyes, glided between tables, delivering drinks with a practiced grace. She had seen countless souls wander in and out of the saloon, each carrying their own burdens, but tonight felt different. Something lingered in the air, a tension Claire couldn't ignore. When Eli stepped into the bar, the atmosphere shifted like a gust of wind. He paused just inside, as if waiting for the air to catch his breath. Claire noticed how his usual confidence seemed to have slipped away. He approached the bar, seeking solace among the noise. Claire asked, masking her concern with a smile as she poured him a whiskey. "Just whiskey," Eli muttered, the words heavy as lead. His fingers curled tightly around the glass as if it could anchor him to reality. "Something's bothering you," Claire replied, her gaze piercing through the veil of his sorrow. Eli let out a shaky breath. Claire's heart sank, a crack forming in her chest. Gone. She left just like that, no warning, no goodbye. His voice was laced with disbelief, each word striking her like a hammer on an anvil. Panic shot through Claire. She had sensed Mary's struggles. "Didn't you see the signs, Eli?" "I thought she was just going through a phase," Eli replied, the guilt etching lines on his face. "Did you ever ask her how she felt?" Claire pressed, her voice steady yet compassionate. His eyes darkened as he rubbed the back of his neck. "Eli, the heart needs more than duty. Love is a partnership, not an obligation," Claire said. "Can't just provide for her, you need to see her." The silence hung heavy between them as Eli grappled with the truth in Claire's words. He finally asked, the desperation deep in his voice. "You have to find her," Claire urged, every syllable laced with urgency. Eli nodded, his resolve hardening. Claire thought for a moment, then suggested, "To the river. It's where she found solace." With that, Eli surged out of the saloon, a man on a mission. Each step he took was a heartbeat turgent and raw. The cool night air was a balm against his skin, driving him deeper into the realization that he might lose the most important person in his life if he didn't act. Mary stood at the water's edge, the moonlight painting silver trails on the surface as it flowed endlessly onward. The gurgle of water mirrored her internal turmoil, and she felt as if the universe was rousing her spirit, beckoning her to dance once again. But the shadows of doubt danced in rhythm with her emotions, each one questioning her choices. In that moment, she didn't just feel free, she felt the weight of loneliness creeping in. What if this choice meant losing Eli forever? Was she strong enough to handle the fallout? Just as those thoughts began to spiral, she heard footsteps approaching. Turning sharply, she found Eli emerging from the trees, his face illuminated by moonlight etched with worry. He called, desperation spilling from his lips. He moved closer, his eyes searching hers for answers. "You should know I care about you." Mary shot back, hurt lining her voice. "You were so wrapped up in your own world, Eli. I thought if I just worked harder, focused more on the church, it would help you feel secure," he cried, frustration simmering. Mary's heart softened slightly at his words, but she was not ready to yield. "I'm tired of being secure." Eli's voice was filled with sincerity, his vulnerability raw. "Help me understand." "To be honest, I don't know who I am without the title of your wife," she admitted, the truth unfurling like petals of a flower catching the sun. "I've felt trapped, Eli." Eli stepped nearer, his heart racing. "You can start by really listening to me," she responded softly but firmly. Their eyes locked, the air charged with electricity, and in that suspended moment of time, they both knew they faced a choice. A path diverged before them, one side anchored in familiarity, the other tinged with uncertainty, and the weight of that decision bore down heavily. "I want to be a partner, not a conqueror," Eli said, his tone resolute. Tears welled in Mary's eyes, realizing that his words were an invitation, a chance to reconnect. "I want that too." "Promise," he breathed, the word hanging between them like a fragile thread. As the river flowed steadily past them, their fears and doubts were carried along with it, together washing away the remnants of what had burdened them both. In that moment, Mary felt the chains of expectation falling away, replaced with hope, a longing to rediscover who she was meant to be. In the aftermath of those intense moments, Mary began to find herself again, and with each day, the glimmer of joy returned. She painted again, harnessing her creativity while Eli supported her, learning to embrace her passions and honor her autonomy. Willow Creek wasn't just a backdrop, it became a witness to their transformation. Each stroll by the river, each shared conversation became a thread in the tapestry of their relationship, woven together with love and understanding. Meanwhile, Claire observed from the sidelines. She could see the subtle shifts between Mary and Eli, how they began to communicate in ways they hadn't before. It was like witnessing a flower bloom from the hardest of soil, and she felt a swell of pride for them both. With time, laughter returned to Mary's lips, ringing like bells in the quiet spaces of their home. Eli, too, felt weight lifting from his shoulders as he watched the woman he loved reclaim her identity. This was no longer about his role or her role. It was about who they were as individuals sharing a life. Eli began to share his own struggles too. He opened up about doubts he had buried deep beneath the responsibilities of being the town's preacher, realizing that vulnerability was the bridge leading them closer together. As the months passed, their bond deepened, solidified by courage and respect. Nights turned into peaceful embraces, mornings filled with shared laughter over breakfast, and weekends spent exploring the beauty of the world around them. And yet, Willow Creek was also alive with gossip. The townsfolk noticed the changes and began to whisper. Some lauded the transformation, while others questioned the preacher's intent. But within the confines of their hearts, Mary and Eli no longer cared about the judgment. They both understood that the journey they were on together was about forging their own path. In moments of doubt, though they would falter, they found solace in each other. They had both weathered a storm, fought for this love, and now embraced a future painted with vibrant colors instead of drab expectations. One evening, as they strolled by the river, the sky ablaze with orange and pink hues, Mary paused, turning to face Eli. "You know, I didn't think I could come back from the brink of leaving." Eli smiled, the warmth of her words wrapping around him like a blanket. "And you made me see that my life was richer when I opened my heart, when I let go of my fear." With the sun dipping below the horizon, they stood united, fingers intertwined, hearts beating as one bold witnesses to their own story of transformation. They knew the road ahead would not always be easy, but having faced their shadows, they were ready to embrace whatever lay before them. Together, they navigated the complexities of love, reaching deep into each other's souls as they built a partnership based on honesty. It was no longer just the preacher and his wife. It became an adventure, a shared life filled with wonder. The preacher's wife left town that day, but the woman who returned was neither a shadow nor a figment of someone else's imagination. She was Mary, fully alive, fully herself, and ready to embrace the world. And at the Golden Spur Saloon, Claire raised a glass, toasting to the love that blossomed from vulnerability. She knew that this town, with all its quirks and secrets, had witnessed something incredible, a love that thrived in authenticity, casting away the chains of doubt. As the stars twinkled over Willow Creek, two hearts moved with purpose, carving a path forward together. They understood that love is not just found in perfection, but in the beautiful messiness of life, the ability to rise, to fall, and to stand side by side, ready to embrace whatever storm may come next. The church bells tolled as the last light of day faded over Willow Creek. Shadows stretched like secrets down the cobblestone streets, cloaking the small town in a shroud of unease. Inside the preacher's house, Mary stood at the window, watching the world outside shift into darkness. Tonight, the weight of her decision pressed against her chest. It was a day like any other, yet everything felt irrevocably different. She had spent years worshiping at the altar of expectation, a perfect smile plastered on her face as she played the role of the ideal preacher's wife. But beneath the surface, a quiet desperation had been festering. This was not the life she envisioned, not the woman she wanted to be. As she glanced over her shoulder at the room filled with the remnants of a life once lived with joy, the suitcase on the floor felt like both a burden and a release. With trembling hands, she tightened the latch, knowing there was no turning back. With every second that passed, the urge to escape clawed at her insides. This was not just a departure. It was a reclamation of self she desperately craved. The whispers of the congregation echoed in her mind, each syllable a chain binding her to a past she longed to shake off. The perfect couple, they called them. But what about her own blessings? What about the dreams she shelved away for an image that felt more like a prison? With one last look at the decor that had come to define her misery, a portrait of a smiling couple above the mantel, upright and proud, she stepped out of the door, leaving the warmth of the family home behind. The cool evening air hit her face and she felt alive. Meanwhile, the Golden Spur Saloon thrummed with life, the laughter of drunkards mingling with the sound of clinking glasses. Here, the town's secrets found a voice, and the truth could slip through the cracks in the walls. Claire, the saloon girl with raven-black hair and sharp green eyes, moved gracefully among the patrons, brightening their spirits with her playful charm. But tonight, even her sparkle felt muted. Something was off. When Eli, the preacher, pushed through the saloon doors, the air turned electric, people glancing up from their drinks, sensing the palpable tension surrounding him. He was a man beloved and respected, yet his eyes betrayed a storm brewing within. It was this vulnerability that made him feel more relatable, more human. "Pour me a drink, Claire," he said, his voice heavy with uncertainty. Claire asked, concern etched on her face as she poured whiskey into a glass. Eli downed the drink in one swift motion, then slammed the glass onto the bar, frustration boiling beneath the surface. Mary left. The world around Claire froze for a moment. "What do you mean?" "Just," his voice wavered and Claire could see fear creeping into his normally strong presence. "No goodbye, no." She felt her heart constrict. "I thought we were fine," he said, the words heavy as stones. Claire's eyes narrowed, recognizing a pattern all too familiar. Eli holding it together isn't the same as being there for her. He looked away, shame washing over him in waves. He asked, desperation hanging on every syllable. "You have to find her," Claire urged, her voice firm. Eli felt a surge of resolve. "Try the river," Claire suggested, recalling the countless times she saw Mary go there to escape. With a determined nod, Eli bolted from the bar, leaving Claire aware of the strange pulse of fate pushing him forward. She couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play, something that would change their lives forever. Mary had reached the riverbank, the gentle rush of water calming her frayed nerves. Standing there, she felt the wind whip through her hair, a swift reminder of everything she had ever wanted but silenced. She closed her eyes, letting the coolness of the night wash over her. This was the freedom she sought, the silence that came with stepping away from the pedestal. As she gazed into the flowing water, a part of her wondered if she would ever return to the life she knew. The weight of choice settled heavily on her chest, but with each heartbeat, the exhilaration of self-discovery stirred in her veins. And then she heard the footsteps. Eli's voice cut through the evening stillness, filled with urgency and an undercurrent of vulnerability. Her heart pounded as she turned to face him, his figure illuminated by the moonlight, his expression a mix of relief and frustration. "I had to find you." His voice softened, imploring her to understand. Mary took a step back, every instinct screaming to wall herself off. "You shouldn't have come," she said, panic simmering just beneath her skin. Eli stepped closer, his eyes burning with sincerity. "You deserve to be heard." She shouted, frustration boiling over. "Try me," he replied, his voice steady. "I may be a preacher, but I'm still your husband. I want to know what drove you to vanish." That sentiment tugged at her heart, threatening to unravel the barriers she had so carefully constructed. She snapped. Eli exclaimed, his voice raw with pain. "I've been so focused on being a good preacher that I lost sight of being a good husband." She fired back, her heart a whirlwind of emotion. Eli's face fell, the blow hitting him hard, but he refused to give up. "What can I do?" "Let me be free," Mary replied, her voice softer now, trembling with uncertainty. The silence hung between them like fog, dense and heavy, but Eli's heart was racing with a newfound determination. She echoed, skepticism creeping into her words. He asked, taking a step forward, "If you feel lost, let me walk beside you." Tears welled in Mary's eyes, pooling at the edges as she processed his words. Could she really take this leap? Could they rebuild what had been shattered? The emotion swept through her like a tidal wave, threatening to pull her under once again. But a flicker of hope ignited in her chest, challenging the fear that had consumed her for so long. She whispered, vulnerability spilling forth. "Absolutely," Eli replied, his voice firm. "I can't promise I'll get it right every time, but I promise to try, to listen, and to learn." As the moonlight shone down on the two of them, illuminating the vulnerability in their eyes, Mary felt the chains of expectation fall away. Perhaps this was the path she needed to take. "Okay," she said gently. Over the following weeks, the world of Willow Creek transformed around them. The once suffocating pressure began to lift as Mary slowly rediscovered her passions. She'd sit by the river, painting the scenes that unfolded before her, her creativity flooding back to life. Eli would join her, asking questions, sharing stories, painting alongside her, and offering his own vulnerable truths. Together, they learned to communicate in ways they never had before. They would talk long into the night, discovering the dreams that had lain silent for so long. And with each honest conversation, they peeled back the layers of their relationship, revealing deeper connections forged in vulnerability. Claire watched as the change unfolded, feeling both admiration and relief. Town buzzed with gossip, but she knew better than to judge. Love could be a complicated tapestry, woven with knots and loose threads, but it could also thrive when nurtured with compassion. One evening, Mary settled in beside Eli on the riverbank, the cool breeze rustling through the trees and the stars twinkling above. She asked, her voice laced with nostalgia, "How could I forget? You were the only one who didn't flinch when I stumbled over my words in church." Eli laughed, warmth spreading between them. She giggled, the sound pure and unfiltered. "And it's my responsibility to help you feel seen every day," he replied softly, his eyes sincere. As they exchanged knowing smiles, Mary felt the weight of their past shift to the side. Love was not just about roles. It was about supporting one another, even amid uncertainty. With time, blossoms of hope bloomed in the heart of Willow Creek, and the once vibrant church lessened its hold over them. They learned to cherish each moment spent together, investing in their love rather than allowing it to become a mere obligation. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with colors of hope, Mary turned to Eli. "I think I'm ready to go back to the church," she said, nervousness flickering in her eyes. Eli smiled, pride filling his heart. "I want to contribute to the community, but this time on my own terms. I have my art, my voice," she said, her voice steady. Seeing the fire in her eyes filled him with gratitude. "I'll stand by your side." As they walked back into town, hand in hand, Mary felt that familiar spark stirring within her. She was not just the preacher's wife. She was Mary, an artist, a woman with a voice, and she was ready to embrace every bit of it. The town would buzz, the rumors would swirl, but they wouldn't care. They had faced the storm and emerged stronger, willing to take on whatever the world threw at them. In the coming weeks, as Mary found her footing within the church once again, she discovered a new sense of balance. She shared her experiences in women's groups, encouraging others to express their dreams and hearts openly. Eli, no longer just the preacher but a partner in this journey, supported her unconditionally. Together, they built a community founded on authenticity. They transformed the church from a symbol of solitude into a vibrant gathering place where people felt empowered to be themselves. As the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon each night, the couple sat under the stars, whispering secrets and laughter, their hearts interwoven like the stars in the sky. The town of Willow Creek was a postcard of serenity, its sun-kissed streets and flower-laden porches promising simple joys. Yet beneath this picturesque facade lay a current of unspoken tension, and it was about to erupt. At the heart of the storm was Mary, the preacher's wife, standing at the threshold of her life, a suitcase clutched in her hand like a lifeline. Tonight was not just another evening, it was her breaking point. As the last rays of sunlight danced across the horizon, Mary took a deep breath and stepped outside, feeling the cool night air wrap around her like a long-lost lover. She could hardly process the warmth of freedom enveloping her. For too long, she had played the role of the perfect wife, the dutiful partner to Eli, the town's revered preacher. But behind the smile plastered on her face lay a heart suffocating beneath layers of unspoken expectations. Every Sunday, Mary stood beside Eli, adorned in a dress that sparkled like her smiles. Yet, with each praise, she felt a part of herself shatter, a dream slipping further away into the abyss. It was exhausting keeping up the facade, living a life defined by someone else's vision of holiness. She walked quietly through the back alley, feeling the weight of her decision settle on her shoulders. Tonight would be the night she reclaimed her identity. The suitcase held not just clothes but dreams long forgotten. She felt an exhilaration coursing through her, a whisper of liberation, but she also acknowledged the fear gripping her heart. Behind that door was everything she had ever known, loving memories entwined with a growing sense of entrapment. At the Golden Spur Saloon, a world of laughter and chaos played out in vivid color. Claire, the saloon girl with fiery red hair and a wild spirit, caught a glimpse of the preacher as he entered, her heart quickening. She had seen many women come and go, each with their own story etched onto their faces, but something felt different today. There was tension in the air, whispering secrets that only she could sense. Eli approached the bar, seeking solace among the noise. He asked, his voice thick with confusion. He looked like a man in battle, weary and on the brink of defeat. "Just a drink, preacher," she replied, pouring him a whiskey. He sighed, the weight of his choices hanging heavily. The room stilled for an instant, drinks halted midair. Claire's voice was equal parts shock and concern. She disappeared, no word, no note. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration overwhelming him. Claire leaned closer, her instincts sharper than most. "You should have noticed something was wrong." Eli interrupted, his voice rising. Claire shot back, her tone steady. "You can't just provide for someone like it's a job. Love is partnership, Eli. His face fell, embarrassment and realization wrestling within him. He asked, desperation creeping in, "You need to find her, now before it's too late." Eli pushed back from the bar and stumbled outside, fueled by urgency. The night air was brisk against his skin, a siren's call pulling him toward the edge of town where shadows whispered a truth he was only beginning to understand. Mary wandered deeper into the woods, branches scratching against her arms as she strode toward the riverbank. Each step felt light, the weight of her decision a thrill coursing through her veins. She had spent far too long trapped under expectations, and now was her chance. When she reached the water's edge, the moonlight glittered off the surface like diamonds scattered on a dark velvet cloth. Here, at the river, the sound of flowing water enveloped her, comforting and wild. She knelt by the water and let her fingers graze the cool surface, feeling the pulse of life beneath. She whispered to herself, fear twisting in her stomach. Just when doubt began to settle in, she heard the rustling of leaves. Eli's voice cut through the tranquility, raw with urgency. Her heart leapt, 1,000 emotions crashing over her like waves. She demanded, her voice sharp. Eli stepped into the moonlight and she saw the desperation etched across his face. "Please, just talk to me." She snapped, the words slicing the air. "You never saw me." Eli opened his mouth to respond but faltered. She echoed derisively, "You think intentions matter? I've been lost for so long, Eli." His heart sank, her words striking at the core of his fears, but he refused to give up. "Then let's find that woman together. I want to understand." Mary took a step back, torn between the frustration that had driven her away and the flicker of hope igniting in her chest. "Then we'll figure it out together," Eli said, his voice steady. The tension hung thick, an invisible line stretched between them. As she looked into Eli's eyes, she saw a man capable of change, a partner willing to reshape their future. She whispered, the vulnerability of the moment crashing in on her. "I want to," he replied earnestly. As the river flowed steadily, Mary felt the weight of a world pressing against her heart begin to lift. Perhaps this was the moment she had been waiting for, the chance to reclaim her identity without losing the love she held for him. "Okay," she breathed, tears glistening in her eyes. In the coming weeks, the world around them transformed in its quiet, unassuming way. Mary began to reclaim her passions, diving back into art, feeling the brush glide across canvas, the colors reflecting the vibrant joy she had lost. Eli joined her, seeking to learn not only about her art but about her heart, sharing his own vulnerabilities in turn. Every evening, they would sit by the river, exchanging dreams and fears, letting the gentle current take away the past while allowing their love to solidify anew. They understood that growth takes time, and that love is not about perfection but about connection. Willow Creek buzzed with gossip, and Claire often found herself the target of questions regarding the preacher and his wife. They would ask, "Did you see?" And each time Claire observed Mary and Eli together, she smiled, knowing that this was the transformation that love could inspire. It wasn't easy, but it was real, a journey toward vulnerability and authenticity. One evening, sitting on the banks of the river, Mary turned to Eli. "They might not understand," Eli said, a warmth in his voice, "but our lives aren't for them, they're for us." As the months passed and seasons shifted, the couple embraced the sky with open arms, filled with possibilities. They each blossomed in their own way, allowing each other to grow freely, no longer bound by roles but uplifted in spirit. Eli found joy in supporting Mary's passions, cheering at her art exhibitions brimming with color and emotion. Mary became a beacon of hope in the community, using her voice to inspire other women in the congregation to explore their own dreams and strengths. With the support of Eli, she ignited a change within the church, encouraging open dialogue and acceptance. Together, they painted a new narrative for their community, where love was not defined by obligation, but rather by a shared journey. As they stood hand in hand on the riverside one sunset evening, Mary looked at the man beside her, love filling her heart to the brim. "I can't believe how far we've come." Eli squeezed her hand, his heart swelling with gratitude. "We're stronger together, a team against the world." The bonds between them deepened as they shared laughter, tears, and dreams, wrapped up in the warmth of understanding, crafting their own unique love story. No longer held by the expectations of their past, they stepped boldly into the future. Together, Mary and Eli turned the page, allowing each chapter to unfold with grace and authenticity. They had faced heartache, loneliness, and fear, only to emerge stronger together. Mary had been the preacher's wife who left town without a word, but she became so much more than that. A woman of strength, a beacon of hope, and a partner, walking shoulder to shoulder with the man who learned to see her, not just as a title, but as a unique soul. And beneath the stars that twinkled above Willow Creek, two hearts moved in synchrony, embracing the unpredictability of love. In breaking free, they found their way home to each other, to themselves, and to a life lived with purpose and authenticity. The town of Willow Creek was in a quiet lull, the kind that precedes a thunderstorm, where the air crackled with tension. On a seemingly ordinary evening, everything changed when the preacher's wife, Mary, walked out of the door and into the night, suitcase in hand. No one saw her go, and even fewer noticed the silence that hung heavy in the air. But deep within the wooden walls of the Golden Spur Saloon, Claire, the saloon girl, felt the shift. Claire wiped down the bar, her eyes sharp and aware. The evening glow cast shadows that danced along the floor, but her mind was elsewhere, tuned into the subtle vibrations of the room. It was an ordinary night filled with laughter and conversation. That is until Eli, the preacher, stumbled into the saloon, his face pale and drawn as if he had faced a ghost. "Whiskey," he said, his voice a mere whisper, barely rising above the din of the crowd. Claire poured the drink, concern creasing her brow. "You look like you've seen a spirit." Eli took the glass and threw it back in one go, feeling the warmth spread through him but not quite taking the chill off his heart. "Mary left," he said, and in those 3 words the air shifted around them. The laughter faded, the music quieted, and the room felt suddenly too full and too empty at once. Claire put down the rag she had been using, her instincts igniting. "What do you mean?" "Left town," he replied, pain etching deeper lines across his forehead. Without a word. Claire's heart raced. She had seen the signs. Mary had been restless, a flicker of desperation often shadowing her smiles. Despite Mary's picture-perfect image, Claire sensed the turbulence beneath the surface. She asked gently, trying to navigate the broken pieces of his story. Eli almost shouted, the denial slipping past him before he could contain it. "I thought we were okay, I thought." He sank onto a stool, the weight of his life pressing heavily around him. Claire leaned closer, her intuition guiding her. Eli, to her, being the perfect preacher's wife is a heavy cloak to wear. He shook his head, shame burning like fire under his skin. "I focused on my sermons, my work." "Eli, love isn't a checklist," Claire said firmly. "It's about understanding, it's about connection." I thought I was serving God," he murmured, the realization dawning like the cold light of morning. Claire didn't hesitate. "You have to find her and figure this out before it's too late." Eli's jaw tightened as resolve ignited within him. He pushed up from the bar and out into the cool evening air, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He had to find Mary, he had to make things right. As he sped through the quiet streets, memories clung to him. Their wedding day, laughter shared, moments when Mary's eyes sparkled with joy. And yet beneath those beautiful memories lay an unsettling truth. What had he truly seen? Had he cared? Meanwhile, Mary found herself at the riverbank, the sound of rushing water soothing her own turbulent thoughts. She hadn't gone far, just a few yards from the familiar boundaries of her life. The moonlight caressed her face as she knelt down, letting her fingers trail along the ripples. This was her sanctuary, and within its embrace she finally felt a flicker of freedom. But that flicker was entangled with fear. What had she done? Leaving was a hard choice, but it felt right. Yet as the cool breeze whispered through the trees, it carried with it moments of doubt, gnawing at her resolve. What if she'd made a mistake? A rustle in the bushes broke her reverie. Her heart leaped as she turned, but the fear melted away when she spotted Eli at the edge of the light. He called out, his voice laced with desperation and hope. She asked, pushing herself to stand, every instinct telling her to retreat. "I came to find you," he replied, moving cautiously toward her as if stepping into something sacred. She retorted, her defenses flaring. Eli's raw honesty struck a chord deep within her. I was so busy being the preacher that I forgot to be your husband." Mary paused, wrestling with emotions that threatened to overflow. "You don't know what it's like to be seen as an extension of someone else's expectations," she said, the hurt rushing out like water from a broken dam. "I lost myself, Eli." His expression shifted, understanding washing over him. "Then let's find that person together," he said earnestly. Mary shot back, the spark of anger flaring again. "I don't want to forget them. I want to understand them," Eli pleaded, his vulnerability a powerful force in the dark night. "We can redefine our lives and our love." Mary hesitated. Doubt and hope wrestled inside her, creating a tumultuous scene of confusion. "Then we'll face it together," he insisted, his voice like a tether pulling her closer to reality. As the moon lit up the landscape around them, Mary felt something shift inside her, a glimmer of possibility. Eli was right. They had always faced the world in tandem, but she had been the one caged by expectations. "Can you really do that?" she whispered, vulnerability leaking into her words. "Yes," Eli said without hesitation. "I'll do whatever it takes to support you." Her heart raced as she considered his offer. For the first time in years, she felt the chains loosen, the shadow of doubt retreating slightly. "Okay," she breathed, tears brimming in her eyes, reflecting the glimmer of the stars. They reached out and clasped each other's hands, a promise hanging between them, a fragile but powerful bond that could redefine everything. "Let's take the first step," Mary said, a hesitant smile breaking through her uncertainty. But in the distance, shadows loomed, dark clouds rolling in to eclipse the moonlight, carrying with them the unspoken struggles yet to arise. As they turned to walk back together toward the town, Mary could feel the weight of their past influence pressing down on them. Reunited but fraught with unresolved emotions, they slowly made their way back to the familiar boundaries of Willow Creek. Both were acutely aware that while love felt renewed, the journey ahead would require navigating treacherous waters, where both joy and pain lurked in the depths. Claire watched as they re-entered the main street, the light from the saloon spilling out like a warm embrace. She could see the change in them, the tentative steps of two lost souls seeking their way back to each other. But Claire also sensed something else, the murmurings of the townsfolk, the judgmental whispers that lurked just beneath the surface. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, Mary and Eli began constructing a new life, layer by layer. Mary rediscovered herself through art, pouring her emotions onto canvases filled with colors that spoke of freedom and healing. Eli took on the role of a supportive partner, and their shared nights became a canvas for dialogue, vulnerability, and growth. But in the corners of Willow Creek, themes of isolation and separation lingered. Rumors ran rampant about the preacher and his wife, sparking gossip that surged through town like wildfire. "Did you hear?" they whispered. One day, as Mary showcased her art at a community event, she could hear the whispers. Was the unkindest cut, but each brushstroke reaffirmed her identity, allowing her to reclaim her voice while navigating the judgment of a small town. Eli stood tall beside her, an unwavering pillar of support, but the weight of the people's assumptions pressed heavily on his heart. Would the town ever accept the new version of their love? The pressure of expectation returned, creeping in like storm clouds threatening rain. Then came the day when the storm finally broke. As Mary and Eli held hands outside the church after a difficult sermon, one where Eli had laid bare the complexities of love and acceptance, they were confronted by a group of angry congregants. One voice shouted, disdain coloring the air. Mary's heart raced as voices rose around them, branding the air with hurt and anger. She shouted back, her voice steady despite the trembling inside. Another voice called. Eli stepped forward, his own heart pounding like a war drum. It may not align with your vision of perfection, but our love has changed. We are willing to fight to rebuild and redefine what this means for us. The standoff reached its peak as people exchanged glances, doubt still lodged firmly in their hearts. Mary felt as if she were standing at the edge of a precipice. Would they embrace this change, or would she and Eli be forced into the shadows once more? In that moment, she realized that while the townsfolk had built a reality around her departure, it was time for her to take control of her narrative again. "I'm not simply the preacher's wife," she declared, her voice ringing clear and true, cutting through the tension. As the town held its breath, waiting for the next move, the winds of change began to blow. Will they accept or deny? Would the town shift, or would Mary and Eli find themselves fading into white noise once more? As the crowd watched, uncertain and expectant, the conflict hung thick in the air, a tipping point for all involved. And just like that, they stood at the crossroads of fear and love, their future hanging in the balance.